Okay, so what we are going to be doing in this tutorial is showing you how you can set up a Stammer agent to be able to search the web. Now to do this, what we are going to be doing is using Replit.com to deploy some middleware that will actually handle doing the web search for us. And then we are going to combine that with a Stammer custom function using our custom functions capability to have the agent call the custom function, which will then use this middleware to search the web and return the results to the AI agent. Now, the first thing we're going to need to do here is to set up the middleware. The Replit code for it can be found at this link, which will be included in the documentation that I will build for this. I am going to go ahead and click on it. And then you will not see the view live app because that's only on my account. But what you can actually do is click remix this app, which I'm going to go ahead and do now. I am going to name this demo. And then I assume you will make it private. I definitely highly suggest that. And we will click on remix app. If you're not familiar with Replit, it is a code execution platform. We're not going to need to use the assistant here, so I'm just going to close that. And now we've got the main code right here. I need to expand the file browser. We've got the other files in here that will show up. Now what I'm actually going to do is click run because we're going to start testing this first. It's going to install the requirements that it needs, and the app is actually running now right here. We're actually going to deploy it, so you will need to do this also. Let me click on deploy. Now, the approach you use for deployment really depends on your use case. I don't know a lot about Replit.com's autoscale approach, but I assume their autoscaling solution will kind of turn off the app at some point and then it may need to restart. I could be completely wrong on that. You can do some research, but we're going to use that for this example. But just keep in mind that you may want to use a different approach like reserved virtual machines that are always on, and you can adjust that as needed depending on your use case. I am just going to select autoscale. I will click on Setup Deployment. I don't want this machine to be super powerful by default, so I'm just going to scale it down to actually one machine by default. I'm actually going to adjust this as well. We definitely don't need 4 virtual CPUs for this. We're going to be leveraging, this code actually leverages APIs to do most of the processing for us, so we don't need a ton of compute power here, and I'm actually just going to scale this to 1. I'm going to give it 1 gig of RAM. That should be fine for this use case. So here's what we've set up. I am going to do approve and configure build settings. This is the URL that Replit is going to assign to us. Here's the auto scaling stuff that we just set up. And now here's the key. We need to add the deployment secrets that the code is actually expecting here. We're going to do the first one. Now keep in mind, this code is actually leveraging 2 APIs under the hood, and let me show you what those are because you will need to create accounts for these platforms. The first one is called SerpAPI. It is a fantastic API that we have used for multiple projects. Let me pull that up. You can find it at SerpAPI.com. Create an account. You'll be able to get your API key. The other API that we're using for this example is the ScrapingBeeAPI. Let me pull up that platform as well. As you can see here, ScrapingBee.com, you'll sign up for an account, get your API key, and then once you have your API keys, we are going to enter them in here. Let me go ahead and put mine in. Okay, and in these deployment secrets, these are environment variables is essentially what these are called. I put in my SerpAPI API key. Keep in mind, you're going to need to name it exactly as this. You can get it from the code over here or in the documentation that I am creating for this tutorial. Okay, and this final environment variable right here is a type of primitive authentication. Essentially what we are doing is defining an environment variable API_key. You can put whatever you want in here. For this tutorial, I've actually used "this is my amazing API key," just that string. You can put in here whatever you want to provide some type of primitive authentication for your API so that anyone that hits up this endpoint cannot simply use it and incur costs for your API accounts. Now I'm going to delete this example right after this tutorial, so I don't mind showing this, but obviously do not share these keys with anyone else. Now what I'm going to do is click on deploy, and this is actually going to deploy the application. And then we are going to get to testing this middleware. Okay, so now the application is living and listening at this domain here. We can actually test this by visiting this URL, and it should give us back a test response. So we're going to click on that. This is kind of a health endpoint that has been created. And as you can see, the API is properly running. We're not getting any errors. So all the API keys at least exist and can be used by this middleware code. Okay, and so now we need to test that the web search endpoint is actually working properly. And to do that, we cannot use a browser with a simple HTTP GET request in order to test this. Instead, we need to use a HTTP request maker. The tool we're going to use is this very nice little online tool to make HTTP requests called reqbin.com, reqbin.com. We're going to build this request up piece by piece. So the first thing we're going to do is let's just make sure that this tool can access this endpoint that we have deployed. I'm going to copy this. I am going to put it into here. Keep in mind, this is going to be a GET request, which we are soon going to change in just a moment here. But I'm going to click on send, and we should get a response. And notice that it is the exact same response that we got when we visited it manually. That is because when you actually visit a URL in the browser, you're actually making a very basic HTTP GET request. Now to actually use the API and have it return anything, we need to change this to be a post request. So that is the first step. We've already got the URL in here. Now what we're actually going to do is we are going to set up the JSON that we are going to send. So we're going to go to body. We want to select JSON here. It's already selected, so we are good to go. I have pasted in this example that I'm actually going to include in the documentation, but essentially the values that we are passing to the API, we've got our API key in here. This is my amazing API key. Obviously, I am going to delete this deployment later on, so I don't need to worry about exposing that key. Keep yours secret. Now the query, this is what we are actually querying. So this mimics what you would type into Google. For this example, I'm just going to say latest news, and this would be the results you would get if someone literally typed into Google latest news. Here's where you define the number of results. I'm going to keep it to 5 for this example. These are all optional: number of results, location. There are defaults that it'll send back. The only thing you're actually required to send it is the API key and the query. For the location, we're going to keep it to be United States. For render.js, that is JavaScript, we're going to keep that to true. That will cost you more money through the ScrapingBeeAPI. So keep that in mind, that if your use case does not need that, you can set this to false. The proxy type, I am going to select premium, but also keep in mind that will incur more costs on the ScrapingBeeAPI, so you can actually use one of the other proxy types. We do have all the information both in the code, of course, and then also when you look at the documentation, I've got some basic example calls here with everything we support. Yeah, here we go. You can just look at the optional parameters here. We've got proxy type. You can do classic, premium, or stealth. Now let's go ahead and click send and see if there is anything I've forgotten here. I don't believe so. Oh yes, and one important thing I forgot. We actually have to add the search endpoint. So we're going to type in here search. I believe that should be enough. Let's go back to the body here and let's send this request and see if this works. Okay, good. We're actually getting an error here that says SerpAPI key not configured. I'm going to pause the video and make sure that my environment variables have been set up properly. What I probably did is copied something incorrectly when I was quickly adding those. So let me pause the video, let me check those keys and make sure they are the actual keys that I intended them to be. Okay, and I actually found the problem. I made a small little error when entering the environment variable key right here. Notice that I put in SerpAPI_key. It's actually going to be looking for the environment variable SerpAPI_API_key. So a little error there. I've already updated the documentation that I'm creating, so just copy it from here. And then I am going to pause the video, edit this environment variable, and update it. Okay, now I didn't updated the key or the name for that environment variable. Now what I need to do is, since I have updated an environment variable, I am going to need to go ahead and redeploy the application. So I am just going to click on deploy again. We will let it do its thing and deploy the application. Okay, it has now been deployed. So it has the updated environment variables, hopefully, in there. Let's go back to our tool. Remember, you have to put search in here. This is actually a very bare bones API. So one thing that I want you to keep in mind is that I do not believe it'll work if you put a backslash on here, or a / is technically what that is. Right, it doesn't know what that URL is. So you definitely need to have search without the slash. Now let's go ahead and click send, since we've updated the proper environment variables, and we should get a response. Okay, great. So this is the response that we expect. We've requested 5 results. It has actually returned 3. This happens sometimes with the SerpAPI API, because sometimes Google doesn't return all the results to them. It's just kind of a suggestion, basically. Now what we're gonna do, we're gonna change some of these. We could do 10 if we wanted to. We could actually change the query here. We could update it to something like latest dog news, whatever we really want. And there we go, the results have been returned to us. So basically, we have deployed this middleware that will handle the actual scraping and getting the results for us. Okay, the next step, now that we know this is working and we know it's working properly, we need to set up this custom function in Stammer so that our agent can use this custom function, which behind the scenes, Stammer will basically send this exact same type of request to this API that we've already deployed so that our agent can then get the response. Now I am inside Stammer in one of my accounts. I've got this web search example agent already set up. I am going to go inside of it. Now the key area to go to here is the Functions tab. You can see I already have this set up. You, of course, would go to New Function, but let me show you exactly what you need to put in here. I am going to include a screenshot of this inside the tutorial so you can replicate this, but let's just go over how this works. Okay, so this is actually an older URL when I originally built this. I am going to delete this, it no longer works. And then I'm gonna add the URL that we just accessed and successfully called. I will copy this. I will go back to Stammer, update this. Keep in mind, you do need to have a function alias. This will be exposed to the AI agent, and you will have to put details on this inside the prompt so that it knows how to call this. You can create a description here. I just put allows the agent to search the web and kept it basic. Here are the prompt instructions. This is just an example. You will need to copy this and put it into your base system prompt. We will go over the base system prompt in just a moment here. Now here are the parameters that need to be set up that the chatbot will need to actually send to the custom function so it can be called properly. The only thing you need to set up here is the query parameter. It needs to be named. You need to maintain all these names basically the same, so be careful with this. It will need to be query, it's a string, and then a description of it is that it is what the user wants to search for on Google. Do mark it as required. Then you will need to expand these advanced options. You will need to copy this in its entirety. The content type needs to be application/JSON, so make sure you get that right. Now these are the static parameters. These will never change, and the AI agent does not have access to them. That's important to remember. So your API key cannot be exposed. It's only the Stammer system that has exposure to these. And these are the exact same as what you see in the request that we just built. Adjust them as you need. I am going to keep them basically the same here. We've got this API key. Obviously change this to be whatever you've set up. We've got a number of results. We've got the location. We've got rendered.js. We've got proxy type. You can also test the function inside the Stammer dashboard. I do highly suggest doing that. It's very, very easy to make little simple mistakes. We've already tested the function using this, so we know it works, but let's make sure that it works within Stammer and that we have set this up correctly. So I'm going to click test function. We will need to provide this query. Let's do latest cat news. Now we're going to click run test and hopefully this works. Let's see. Okay, so that is working perfectly and our function has been updated properly. I'm going to click update function just one more time to make sure that it saves. The function has been updated successfully. Now let's go to the base system prompt because I want to show you what I have gotten to work. Yours may be slightly different or you may find a better way to do this. I'm going to go in here. Keep in mind, this is a very, very bare bones base system prompt. I have modified nothing except this section here, actually. Keep in mind, these are comments in the Stammer system. These do not get sent to the AI agent. What I've said here is if the user wants to search the web, or if you feel that searching the web would give better, more relevant information, then you can use the web search tool / function in order to call the web search tool. All you need to do to call this function is pass in the user's query or the appropriate query that you think will return the proper results. That seems to work well enough for me right here. Keep in mind, you may need to adjust it, and sometimes providing some example calls to the agent can be helpful. Now also notice here that I have turned on debug mode. That is incredibly helpful for debugging these AI agents, and the debug mode only shows up in the Stammer dashboard. Now what I'm going to do is just go ahead and click Update AI Agent, and we are going to go and chat with this AI agent and see if it can search the web. Now I am going to clear this out. I want to copy this. And I'm just going to paste this in and let's see if this works. Okay, now let's scroll down. It has returned a response. You can actually see it calling the web search function right here and the results that were returned to the AI agent. Now this is kind of a ridiculous query in many ways because most users are not going to even know about that and how to search the web, but it will handle, and keep in mind, this all depends on how you adjust the base system prompt. But let's ask it something more general and see if it will actually search the web in order to get information. We may need to tweak the base system prompt a little bit in this tutorial. Let's see. I'm going to ask it, what can you tell me about the latest news in the world? And let's see what it does. Now look at here. Okay, this is why you need to adjust your base system prompt. It says, I'm not sure. My focus is on assisting with business-related inquiries. If you'd like, I can call the search web for the latest news for you. I'm actually going to go into the base system prompt. And let's see if we can adjust this. I'm actually going to remove this right now, this thing about the base system prompt. If the user, and I have this from earlier, if the user asks a question, it would be best answering the search the web, then feel free to, yeah, I'm actually going to remove this as well. Do not break character. And I'm actually going to remove this as well. This is what I mean about having to tweak your base system prompt to fit your use case. I'm going to click Update AI Agent. Let's go back to the main agent dashboard. I'm going to copy this. Let's clear this. And let's see if the agent takes the initiative on its own to just search the web. Okay, and this is working perfectly now. I told it to tell me about the latest dog news. It searched the web, it used the web search tool, and it says here are some of the latest dog related stories. That's interesting. Let's scroll down to the debug mode and see where it actually called. Here it is. It called the web search function. It got 5 results with some information about the latest dog news. But this is it. This is basically it. This is how you set up a custom function and the associated middleware using Replit.com to give a Stammer agent the ability to search the web. Keep in mind, I'm going to be doing more of these custom function tutorials, so definitely let me know through our Discord or send in an email to tim@stammer.ai what custom function tutorials you would like to see.